12-6, graphing inequalities in two variables. Let me remind you that inequalities use the following signs: greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. The last time we talked about this, we said that these were the plain signs, and these were the fancy signs. So keep that in mind. We're going to learn how to graph these. Okay, when we get ready to graph an inequality, the first thing we do is we think about where the line would be if that was an equal sign. So if you had to graph y equals 1x plus 2, where would that line be? And we're going to call that line the boundary line. You'll see why in a minute. We need to graph the boundary line. Now, here's what's important to know. When you graph inequalities, when you have a plain sign, you're going to have a broken or dashed boundary line, not a solid boundary line, so your boundary line is going to be dashed. When you have a fancy sign, one of these, you have a solid boundary line. So those are some important things to know. So now let's graph y equals 1x plus 2, and we're keeping in mind that this is a plain sign, so we need a dashed boundary line. So graph it just like you graph, the regular line. This one has a y-intercept of 2. That's the starting point. So go up and find 2 on the y-axis. And then you have a slope of 1. So put that over 1 to make it a fraction and go up 1 over 1. Okay. Now you're going to draw the line, but you're not going to draw a solid line. You're going to draw a dashed line because this is a plain sign. So there's the dashed version of the line. Put some arrows on it. Now, it's really important when you're doing this that you don't make a really short line because it'll be harder. You need a line that runs your whole graph, your whole area. In other words, your line should run the whole graph. See, because my graph is this big because there's my axes. So that's what you need to think about. Now, the next thing has to do with this inequality because that's really what we're graphing. We're just doing this to get the boundary line. And this says greater than. So it says everything that's greater than this line. So if you were guessing, would you think that greater than was stuff up here or greater than was stuff down here? Well, greater than obviously is up here in my mind. That's greater than. It's more towards the top. I know it's slanty. This is the greater than slide. And there's a way to check. Here's how you check to find out. If you're not sure which side is the greater than side, you check by picking a point. Like, let's just pick this point here. And we'll pick this point here because it's an easy point. You pick one point on each side of the line if you're not sure which side is greater than. And you say, oh, well, let's see. This is the point -3, 4. And this is the point 0, 0. So you take those 2 points and you put them in to the inequality and you see which one works. One of them is going to make that true and one of them is not, because it's either this side of the line or this side of the line. So we're going to check and see which one. So, you know me, I'm going to start with the easy one. That's the 0, 0. If I put 0 in there, I'm going to get what? 0, wait a minute. 0 is greater than 1 times 0 plus 2, okay? Well, 0 plus 2 is 2, so I come out with 0 is greater than 2. Is that true? No, that's not true. So this point is the one that's not part of our graph. Let's see about this point over here. Okay, if I put that in, I get 4 is greater than 1 times negative 3 plus 2. Let's see if that's true. 1 times negative 3 is negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. So 4 is greater than negative 1. Is that true? Yes. So the point on this side is actually part of our graph. That's this point. This is part of our graph. This point is not part of our graph. It did not make this statement true. So now what you do is you shade in the correct side of the graph. Now, me shading on the tablet is probably not going to be too pretty, but you shading on your paper needs to be pretty. Okay, get a pencil and shade in. Don't scribble it in. Actually shade it in. So you shade in the side of the graph that is the right side. Okay, so it's everything over here, all of this. Okay, if I shade it in with my pencil, you can even use a colored pencil. It should look pretty much like the shading in the book. It's just pretty impossible to shade in on the tablet and make it look great. Now, what I'm saying by shading that in is I'm saying that every single point that's in this, even the ones that going this way, you know, because this graph keeps going, every single point on this side of the line works for this. And all of the points on this side of the line don't work for this. That's exactly what I'm saying. Let's do another one. Okay, let's do another one. Remember, the first thing we need to do is we need to graph the boundary line that's going to have the equal sign. The boundary line for this inequality looks like that. Now we need to consider what kind of a sign do we have, because plain signs you have a dashed line, and fancy lines you have a solid line. Okay, the reason is with a plain sign it doesn't include the line. But with a fancy sign, the line itself, the points on the line are included in the answer. So, anyway, we have to graph this. So, we start with the b, negative 2. So, we go to negative 2 on our graph. Then we look at our slope and put it over 1. Up 3 over 1. Start at the starting point and go up 3 over 1. There's our slope. There's our line. So now we're going to connect the dots, and what kind of a line? Do we need dashed or do we need solid? Well, we have a fancy sign, so we need a solid line. Okay, so let's see. Solid line. All the way that covers the graph, because remember, we're going to shade one side or the other. Okay, now we got our line drawn. Now, next thing is we look at our sign and we say, okay, it's everything, all the y's that are greater than or equal to. Everything that's greater than or equal to. Well, to me, this side over here looks greater than. This is the side that looks greater than. Let's find out by picking a point. I'm going to pick 0, 0. I like to pick 0, 0 because it's easy to run through the equation. Okay, so let's see. If I put that in, 0 equals 3 times 0 minus 2. Only I don't need equals, I need greater than or equal to. Okay, so 0 is greater than or equal to 0 minus 2. So 0 is greater than or equal to negative 2. Is that true? Yes. So it's this side. This is the greater side. Now all I have to do is shade. Okay, and you know, shading's not going to be pretty with the tablet, but you have to shade in everything over here neatly, not messily like I'm trying. I would love to do it neatly, I just don't know how you would ever do it. Because drawing on the tablet, you know, that's a whole nother fun thing. And it doesn't really like to shade. It's not enjoying it. Shade it all in. If you need to go two ways and go over it, great. Okay, so there is the answer. That is exactly how you do this. Now, sometimes they don't give you the problem in nice, easy slope-intercept form. This is one. You can't do this unless you're in slope-intercept form. So what you have to do is change it. So I need it to say y is less than or equal to something. I need y by itself on this side. So I need to get rid of the 5x. So I'm going to go minus 5x, just like we've been doing. Well, that's going to give me y is less than or equal to, rearrange, put the x in front, plus 2 because that's a positive 2. Now, I can totally do it. So, first thing, find my boundary line, y equals negative 5x plus 2. Okay, start with the b. So go up and get the y-intercept of 2, put your point. Then put your slope over 1 if it's not already a fraction, and go down 5 over 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down over 1. So there's my point. Now, I want to draw my line. What kind of a line am I going to draw? Go back to the sign. Fancy sign gets a solid line. Plain sign gets a dashed line. So that's a fancy sign. So it gets a solid line. So there's my solid line. Make it through the whole graph. Okay, next thing. Now I have to decide which side of the line I'm going to fill in. So I'm going to pick a point and check it and see if it actually works. Alright, I'm going to pick 0, 0. I bet you knew that was coming. So if I put 0, 0 in, I get 0 is less than or equal to negative 5 times 0 plus 2. 0 is less than or equal to, well, negative 5 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 2 is 2. 0 is less than or equal to 2. Yeah. So that's true. So it's this side of the graph. Now, you can sort of tell, okay? Because see, when the line is slanting this way, less than is sort of the stuff that's, I don't know how to explain that. To me, if the line is slanting this way, this is less than, this is greater than. If the line was going this way, this is greater than, this is less than. It's like the bottommost point of the line. I don't know how to explain that very good. Anyway, you can always check it with a point. That's the beauty of it. So it's this side. So now I got to color in. Shading, 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 shading. Yours is going to be beautiful shading, not like mine, because I can't do it like I want to on the tablet, which is annoying to me. Anyway, you shade it in. You're done. Beautiful. Okay, here's your video homework. Both of them are graphs. Remember about the signs. There's a lot to remember. Go back and watch it again if you need to. Have a great night.